And we looked at this when we looked at depression. And I want to show you, especially for those who weren't here and for those who were here, to recap. Here is the nerve cell. And the nerve cell has receiving stations, and these receiving stations receive the chemical messages from the next nerve cell. And they take the messages down the arm, and then it's released out into the little boutons to the receiving stations of the next nerve cells. Dr. Carolyn Leaf, a Christian psychoanalyst, she explains it very well. She said, when we are tempted with negativity, tempted to hold on to the resentment, and in the little book Ministry of Healing, in the chapter Mind Cure, she says, grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust, all tend to break down the life forces and invite decay and death in the body. Now, she said that in the early 1800s. And now Dr. Carolyn Leaf, in the book Who Switched Off My Brain, she shows the science behind it. When we entertain or cherish negativity, that negative thought is like a breeze that comes through the branches. And at that point, we can let it go or we can hold on to it. When we hold on to it, that's when we cherish it. And thorns grow between the dendrites. Physical thorns are growing between the dendrites. Here they are, physical thorns. And that is how grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust can invite decay and death, and I'd like to add another word, even cancer into the body. But let me tell you something wonderful. When we go to bed at night, let's say today we each forgive anyone who has ever hurt us in our life, misunderstood us, abused us, whether it be sexually, whether it be physically, whether it be emotionally, whether it be verbally, we forgive. And I've got some good news. You don't have to feel like it. How could you? Just do it, because it's a law of the mind. When you make that decision, your emotions and your feelings will actually suit. Might take a couple of days, might take a week before you feel great about it, but just do it. It's a not negotiable. You must do it. Let's say we do it today, and tonight when we go to sleep, and ideally by 9 p.m, at a stretch 10 p.m, because of our choice to forgive, a cleaning system is stimulated. It's called the glymphatic system. And in the book, Why We Sleep, Dr. Matthew Walker, a British neurologist, he also explains it. The glymphatic system, should be an M in there. The glymphatic system is made up of glial cells, and there are more glial cells in the brain than nerve cells, and we have 1 trillion nerve cells. So we'd make the decision to forgive. And then when we go to sleep tonight, the glymphatic system will come along and it'll vacuum clean up all the thorns. No wonder Jesus stressed the importance of forgiveness so much. So let me tell you about Doug. Doug's 40. He came to us with prostate cancer. Now, with every type of cancer, there might be little tiny things that you'll do on the side for that type. This is the foundation, what I took you through. But for prostate cancer, he also had zinc, also a herb called saw pimento. Saw pimento can reduce the inflammation of the prostate gland. And because it's in the hormonal system, also the Anna's wild yam cream, which we talked about hormones earlier in the week. So there are a few little things that we add for that specific cancer. I said to Doug, "Did you have a happy, healthy childhood?" He said, "No, my father yelled at me all my life." And he started to get quite upset. So we moved on. Later in the week, he heard my lecture on forgiveness. The power of forgiveness to cut the chains that bind you to painful past, to give you wings, to give you freedom even to mop up your thorns. After the lecture, I said, Doug, have you forgiven your father? He said, you don't understand. He yelled at me all my life. I said, I can appreciate that must have been terrible. But Doug, you got to. Your healing's dependent on it. You don't understand. So I stopped. 2 minutes later, he said, I've done it. In the lecture, I showed it's just a decision. You just make it. Your feelings will try and hold you back. Just do it. These are your reins. What do the reins do to the wild horse? Ooh, bring it in. That's your feelings and your thoughts and your emotions. They go up and down like the wind. God gave us that free prefrontal cortex to keep that where it should be. Just do it. I said, congratulations, Doug. Do you know, as the hours and the days went by, Doug began to smile. The first week of the program, he was telling people about how his father yelled at him all his life. And you know what Doug was actually doing? This pathway of his father yelling at him was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, their physical pathways, because he kept relating it. In fact, people were starting to see him coming and wanting to get away from him. He was angry. The second week, we saw a different man. It was incredible. It took about 24 hours and we saw him start to soften. It's a law of the mind that your words affect your feelings. That's why be careful on your words. Doug didn't realise he was just compounding the whole problem by relating the story again and again and again. His father was dead, but he was still in chains to what happened in his childhood. And when he forgave, he acknowledged there is a judge far greater than me that's going to deal with it. My role is to walk away. How do we walk away? Through forgiveness. Forgiveness cuts those chains that bind you to that painful past. Just do it. It's a prefrontal cortex decision. Just do it. Your feelings will come into line. By the third day, Doug began to smile. We hadn't seen him smile before. In fact, that second week, he didn't relate the story at all. And as I saw that, I thought, his glymphatic system has done it. The glymphatic system has mopped up the thorns, and this pathway that's been hurting him, he stopped going down, and look what happened to the pathway. It got less and less and less. And the pathway of forgiveness got more and more. 21 days, the research shows, to form a new pathway. 60 days before it's in cement. One of the things I love to do is memorise, and I find that that's exactly right. I have to get it in cement before I can relate it. It's the same process. The research is now showing that our brain can be rewired right up until the day we die. Isn't that good news? It's called neuroplasticity, soft wire. They used to think our brain was hardwired. But in the last 15 years, they say, we're wrong. I wonder how many things in the next few years that they say are right now are going to be wrong then.